Muriel asks, what is a core competency in a business context? Well, business strategists should be familiar with C.K. Prahalad's and Gary Hamel's classic business concept, the core competency. Now, for those who aren't familiar, or those who slept through that portion of your MBA, a core competency is one of the most important, misunderstood, and really ignored concepts in business. The classical definition of a core competency is some attribute of your company, something that's about the company that provides access to a wide variety of markets. People provides access to people. It provides value behind the products, some kind of benefit that that customers want, and then it provides unique attributes that are difficult for a competitor to be able to take advantage of. And so if you think about it, you map it to H.J. Lovett's business value framework. It's people, process, and platform. A core competency delivers people, it delivers process, which is the value, and it delivers the uniqueness, the platform. In fact, let's bring this up here. What are some examples of this? Well, Apple probably is now one of the most valuable companies in the world. It's a $1 trillion company. Why? Because they have found, then lost, then found their core competency, which is outstanding design. That's really what they're good at. Great design gives them the ability to access markets in ways that people didn't think possible. Here's a really good example. The iPod was, by a long shot, not the first MP3 player. There were tons of them on the market. There were all sorts of crazy shapes and sizes and stuff like that. Most of them were uniquely terrible to use. Apple figured out that design was what they needed to bring to the MP3 player market. And the same is true of the smartphone market. There were cell phones and mobile phones long before the iPhone. But the iPhone redefined the market because it had great design. And the same is true of the tablet market. There were tablets as early as like 1998. Toshiba had a tablet computer that was not fun to use. But the iPad changed and redefined that market because of great design. And design especially is something that's extremely difficult to imitate well. Look at all of the knockoff competitors. Remember the Microsoft Zune? It really didn't capture a ton of market share because it wasn't a great design. So look back at the history, especially if you remember Apple from, say, the late 80s through about 1997. At one point, Apple's stock was worth $1 because they lost their way. They lost design as their primary core competency, and they ended up with terrible computers, terrible names, terrible everything until Steve Jobs came back. Second example, of course, Google. It has a ridiculously strong core competency, which is the understanding of data and algorithms. Google's a data company, and it's a machine learning company, and it has been for ever and ever, really since the beginning. PageRank, which was Larry Page and Sergey Brin's original concept they developed at Stanford, it was the heart of their company, the ability to collect data and process it. And now you see this in a bunch of successful products. You see it in AdWords. You see it in the core search engine. You even see it in things like the smart assistants. Google Assistant is a very popular system. It's the second most popular on the market. And their ability to create great algorithms and process massive amounts of data gives them access to markets, creates incredible value, and really creates a very unique, very difficult to compete with algorithm advantage. Google misses when they step outside that core competency, like Google Glass. Not that great of a product. Remember Google Wave and Orkut and Google Plus. When Google steps too far outside its core competency, it doesn't do so well. A third example of a powerful core competency is Netflix. Netflix, for those folks who don't have as much gray hair, there was a time when Netflix was a very different company, when they actually physically mailed you DVDs. You go to the website, rent a movie, and a day later or 2 days later, it shows up in a little red envelope. You open it up, watch it, stick it back in the envelope, and return it. No late fees and all that stuff. We don't think of Netflix as a DVD company anymore. We now think of it as a streaming company that and a content studio in its own right, making its own content. What is Netflix's core competency? It isn't DVDs. It isn't streaming. It isn't even video. their core competency is convenient delivery of content to your home. The original business model was basically to deal with the fact that Blockbuster was a terrible business to deal with, between late fees and all sorts of skeezy locations and stuff. But they pivoted when the streaming market came out, and they were able to really successfully leverage it. What did not change is their core competency: convenient delivery of content to your home. It's gotten more convenient now because stuff just appears. And I think probably now when you look at what they're doing with their unique series like Stranger Things, for example, or the gajillion and a half other series that they've all got, Luke Cage and the whole Marvel universe, it's still convenient content delivery to the home. As long as they're still making great content and delivering it to your homes, content that people want, they are in line with their core competency. So even though they pivoted their business operations, they were able to stay true to that core competency. A number of years ago, Reed Hastings announced that they were going to split the company into streaming and then DVD rental, and nobody liked that because it would have split up the business in such a way that it didn't allow the company to stay focused on its core competency. It would have had two different companies, and it would have created two companies with competing on the same core competency, which is just bad for business. Of course, the stock market revolted, and properly so, and the company stayed together. So the question for Muriel and for you is, what is your business's core competency? What is that attribute that is the right combination of access and value and uniqueness that gives you a sustainable business position, right? If you can't answer the three questions: what gives you access, what gives you what value do you create, what is unique about you, your business is in danger, right? You need to solve that question. Once you know the answers to those questions, then the next step is to map it back to Levitt's framework and say, okay, now that we know what our core competency is and it satisfies these things, we have to figure out what people do we have as a company that bring our core competency to life. What knowledge do they have? What processes and efficiencies does the company have that creates continually improving value? And what platforms and systems do we have, from data to software to physical locations, right? There are stores and companies like McDonald's. McDonald's is a real estate company that happens to serve burgers. That is one of their unique values, is the ability to choose locations really well. When you map Prahalad and Hamel's framework to Levitt's framework, you end up with what's called I call it the core competency mirror framework. Get both right. Get the company side right, get the customer side right, and you will create a complete roadmap to building a successful and sustainable business. So, great question, Muriel. Complicated question. Even though it's one diagram, it's going to take days, weeks, months, maybe years to fully build out the answers. But once you do, you will create that successful, sustainable business that can pivot like Netflix did, and that can avoid going off track like Apple did in the 80s and like Google has with some of its products. So, as always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. If you want help with your company's data and analytics, visit braintrustinsights.com today and let us know how we can help you.